Hello everybody. So in this video we are going to start building an application. Now we already have some examples that we did in Node.js. We did a little bit in the Express application. We pretty much give a form to that Express application. It's a really opinionated way to do things. I want to apply some best practices in there, but at the same time I want to simplify a lot in order not to be difficult to learn it. Of course, we need to do some scaffolding here and there. We need to separate some duties, some procedures, remove some repetitions, and things like that. But for now, I'm really happy what we accomplished in the last video about the basic API. Now, let's actually build an application. Let's build a blog application, a simple blog application. I don't know if we're going to have time to implement like comment, but at least just to put some posts in there. And those posts will have a title, we have a content, and we have an author. Pretty much something simple as that. And now that we have those, we just need to handle that in an API. We need to be able to add, remove, update, and add, remove, on, of course, read. So we need to have the full CRUD application in a REST API format. So we start needed to have like a database, and this became the big discussion what we can use as a database. And there's a bunch of options that we can have. We can use MySQL, we can use Postgres, we can use Oracle even, or SQL Server. We can actually use MongoDB or use Firebase directly, and probably we want to see some Firebase videos later. But we can actually use a lot of databases. But at the same time, because of the concept that I want to accomplish here in this video, is how to teach you a really opinionated way of best practices and have a good, somehow production ready REST API application. And when I'm talking about production ready, so you can actually use it in a real form. So the database, the base one that we're going to be using is going to be the basic API. So I will show you how to clone it, how to change the master and create a new repository. And based on this, that's why we are not start from zero. This is going to be a really good things to see. Really simple, I know, but something really cool to see. And then probably as a database, I was actually thinking SQLite. Why SQLite? It's a self-contained database. That's why. It's pretty much just creating a file that's going to be on the server. And that binary file will have the table structure on this side that we're going to do. And that table structure at the end, if you want to use something else, you can actually use whatever you need. But because I don't want to focus on the database and configuration and connection and stuff like that, I just want to keep things simple. And then you can actually change that connection to whenever you want. And almost use pretty much the whole code that we're going to see today. But we're not using SQLite alone. We're going to use Next.js. Next.js is a really good SQL query builder. And it will help us to have some kind of structure in our application. It's a really good way to actually have it, to post it and to create those SQL statements for us. So we don't need to be really experts in SQL. At least we just simple some selects that update information, get it, posting it, and it will parse that information in already in a JSON format. That's pretty much what we needed. And we can actually send information in JSON format. So that will help us a lot. The really cool thing about this is you can actually, as you can see over here, let me highlight a little bit. You can put it in Postgres, MySQL, Microsoft SQL, MySQL, MariaDB, SQLite, Oracle, Amazon Redshift. So we have connections to all of those, but the one that we're going to actually focus on is going to be SQLite 3. So at the end, you just change the connection to whatever database that you want, and we have pretty much the same functionality. So let's see how actually that works. Of course, I want to implement a little bit of validation. I want to see that the data came on the format that we actually needed. And for that, I'm actually thinking using Joy. Joy is a schema validation description. It was created for another framework that is different from Express, but it has a separation. so we can actually import it. And this one example. So we say, for example, that the schema is an object, has the username, password, repeat password, access token, version, and email. But we're saying that this username is a string, alphanumeric, minimum 3, maximum 30, and it has required. The password, you need to comply with this regular expression. The repeat password need to be the same as the password. Access token, we have a couple of things. There is a couple of joystring. The birth year is a number integer between those specific years. Email is just a string type email, of course. And then I'm going to specify whenever is the only one that is required. As you can see, the username. So they can have, okay, need to have those two or those two or those two in part of the schema. So it's a way to have a really complex schema validation, and then we just call that validate with specific information, and we will receive that value if that actually works, or we're going to receive an error if that validation fails. Like this one fails, so we receive an error. This information is actually value, and we receive that value over there. So it will help us and simplify a lot of stuff, how to validate the information that we're going to be needed. I want to add authentication. Of course, we need to add authentication, but because I want to use Firebase authentication, I'm thinking I will implement authentication probably in the next video. So the idea is going to be this. In this week, let's build our API and have the CRUD implementation, and we can actually save posts, create posts, read it, everything, all the CRUD things. And later, we're going to do the front end that's going to consume our API, and then we change the backend to have the authentication piece. And probably we'll start adding the users too, so we can have like some kind of validation between the users too. So probably we can do that in the next two videos. So in the next 2 weeks, pretty much. So let's get started. So let me go back here. Give me a minute, guys. Okay, so let's get started. As you can see, I have my basic API, the one that we did last time. So let me actually just clone it. Remember, you need to use the CPS. Because I have keys, I use actually the SSH, but that's just a personal thing. If that doesn't work, just switch to HTTPS and it should be working for you. So what I'm going to do, I'm already in my folder, so I just do a git clone that space, and instead of calling basic API, I will call it block API, and click enter. That what we're going to do is we'll create that block API in a folder, and let me open it in my Visual Studio Code. And from here I want to do a couple of things. First, in my package JSON, I will change the name from first Node API to block API, and it's going to be a block Node REST API, and the rest is going to be pretty much the same. Let me open my integrated terminal. Let me copy my example environmental, and let's actually put it's going to be starting development port. I will use the port 3000 for now. And let me keep my origin to everything. So I have almost that. And last piece, let me create a new repository in GitHub. So let me go to GitHub. I will create a new repository. I will call this block API. And before continue, I want to show you something. If I do git remote-b, I believe, I can see that my origin is actually in the basic API. We need to change it. So the way to change it is, instead of doing remote add, going to be, and let me check my note, is remote set URL origin, and let's actually use the new one. That one. Let me copy this one over here. Remember, you need to copy the HTTPS. I can copy the SSH one. This is what I'm going to do. If I do git remote-v, remote, sorry. Now we have, instead of the basic API, it's pointed to my blog API. So we change the origin. This way we can actually do a git status. The only one that actually changed was my package JSON. So we can actually git add everything, and then git commit -m, and let's put blog API initial commit. And now I can actually push it just to be in sync, and that will allow me to have another repository that pretty much will have my package JSON. There you go, Blake API. Oh, Blake APO. I need to change that. But the changes are there, and it's a new repository without pretty much affecting anything from the previous one that is still there. So because I do that, let me just here blog API, and I find out that my README is going to be, because I'm lazy, let's actually just copy my description. It's going to be my title, and the steps is pretty much the same steps. So let me save it at basic typos. There you go, and let me just push it just to have it there. Perfect. And let me verify those are already there. This is my commit. My basic typos is already here with my changes. Perfect. So that way I was able to clone a repository, change the directory name, and then change the origin. That way the origin is going to have a new one, and we have now a new repository, and we will not starting from scratch. That's the important part here. So now that we have that, well, let's install the dependencies. We need to execute yarn to pretty much load everything that we have in the package JSON, and probably we should be doing that before, but I know that's going to work, right? And then let's start development environment, and let's have my postman HTTP localhost port 3000, a get request. Hello there. So my application is working, and when I do something that doesn't exist, ooh, this should not work. What's happening here? Okay, something that needs to be fixed, but the options are actually there. Okay, so now we can get started. So the first thing that I'm going to be using, let me go to my source index. The first thing that I'm going to be using is going to remove this. And I like to have everything a little bit separated. That's why I have my helpers with my errors in there. I have my .env as a helper too. So now I will create another folder, and this one will call routes. And here we have a new file called index.js, index because like the main one. And in this route, pretty much, what I need to do, I will create another one, and this is going to be our Node.js. So we're going to use using something similar as we already saw. So I need to create a router separated from my main app, and then I will import that router to my user, to my index. So before actually put something there, I can get back over here, and probably after my errors, I can actually use import, and let me just check really quick my notes. Router from my routes directory. That is not there yet. And after my express.json and before my not found, I'm going to use app.use my router. That way the routes are not defined here, it's going to be defined in different cases and files. So I will have the routers, and probably I can actually have my new folder services. They want to pretty much communicate with database and things like that. That's a little bit how I like to have things separated. So in my routers, in my root, I need to import the router from actual Express, because we are separating from the Express instance. We need to actually do the import, the router, and just the router part. We don't need to have the full Express thing. So we're just importing that, and we create const router equal initialize our router as an empty one, and then we're just going to export by default the router. It's pretty much how it works. So on this root element, I want to just get the instead of doing the application, we use the router.get, and I use the root cause, and we're going to have, of course, my request response, and this part you already know it, and we're going to respond with simple JSON with a message saying process.env.application name or hello there, just in case. And that route is going to be imported in my index. So in my index we pretty much import again, because we have the router separated, we need to have it like this from Express, and then I will import root from root, and later let's create a router the same way. Remember, this is a separate instance of router. This is the one that's going to actually be imported in the application. So from this router, with router, use the root routes that I already specified there. So the only thing that I'm doing here, export default router, and I will leave it like this for now. The only thing that I did is scaffolding a little bit, and it looks like a little more code, but will help us to have more organized way. Or every route is going to be in its own type of file. So saving those, we can actually verify our survey. The survey is running fine. As you can see, we were saving and we have some errors in there, but we can actually use the local host and we have the hello there. So it's working as it's supposed to. If we do something else, it's going to have an error, not found, and because we're in development without all those trays. Perfect. So let's just keep it with the get. Excellent. And with the something that is not there. Perfect. So our application is working as it's supposed to. The only thing that I added, as you can notice, I added in my root route application name. So let me save that here, application name in my example, and let's put it over here. It's going to be blog API, and let's actually put welcome to the blog API. Because of that, we need to pretty much stop it and start over, because we changed the environmental variables. And now we do a request again. Instead of doing the hello there, we saw that message that we have in our env. But I also did this OR statement. That means it doesn't exist. Pretty much send this one. Is what it does. So let me stop here a little bit. Actually, let me commit. We put it there, added root routes. So I create a root file for my route, and I'm extracting the router from Express. So I don't have the whole Express framework here, just the router section. And the same way that we create a new application that is Express, it's a function from Express. So we need to create a router to actually be a function for the router to be a functional router, as you can see here. After we have that, if then start using application some.use, we use application the router.get, because that's the name that we specified that is going to be our router instance. Let me see if I can actually stop those lines to be removed. Perfect. And from here is a traditional way to do it. We have a get request to my root cause, and that one pretty much is pointing to my request response. And let me just remove it. And that request response, it will pretty much bring my information from my application name in my env file. It's going to be like doing an OR statement. If this doesn't exist, pretty much what I'm saying is respond with this hello over here. That's what we're doing. So it's the same router that we had it before. So it's pretty much, this is what we know that we had it before, but just scaffolding in a new file. Now that with scaffolding, we export this router element as a default, and we importing it here in the index, because we will separating all the routes in different files, and those files are going to be just pretty much import over here. Another one will be like import API from, I don't know, API, and then import login from login, etc., stuff like that, right? That way we have all the routes defined in separate files, and then all that is going to be pretty much imported here. And because it's a router, we can easily say the router the same way that we did it before. We have, again, the router is part of the router function that came from my Express, and the only things that we're going to be using is we have in those systems we have the route is going to be used for my route, and way we extended this router functionality using the router defined over here, and then we just export it. And when we export those, what we have pretty much is in the index one, we import the router and we use the router. Probably will be a really good example just to have it like that. So that way our index file will not change that anymore, I believe. We can keep it like that, and the rest is going to be separated in those. When we build the database connection, it's going to be different services that we have a service. If you want to look at the MVC way of doing things, look at this one, the route to be pretty much like controllers. And look at the services pretty much as the views. Sorry, as the models. So services will be pretty much the model somehow. And the role controllers and some helpers is pretty much helping us, right? With different functionality to could be shared between the project. So let's continue. So now that we have that, we need to define pretty much our API. And we have, and for API, let me create a new file called api.javascript. And from API, in this case, you know what? Let's do things a little bit more. I don't like to complicate things, but probably this is going to be better. So I will have an API folder. Why? Because we have several APIs. That's why we need to have that kind of scaffolding. And from there, I use an index and my post. So we're going to define the post element. Actually, let's change this to be blocks. No, actually, let's keep as a post. Sorry for that. So it's going to be a different post that our block will have. It's going to be in this router, and it's going to be handled through this API. So the only thing that we're going to do in that API is pretty much exactly the same as this index. So let me just copy all this, go here, but we're going to import the post element from post. That's going to be pretty much here, and we're going to use, instead of using the root, we're going to use post. And the difference here that we're going to change a little bit. So instead of doing just heading like that, we're going to define a pre-index. That means that /API and the post is pretty much what we're going to be handled over here. And we can actually have is not doing something, you'll get in the router that actually have it over here. Yeah, something as simple as this. Let me comment this out because I don't have anything there yet. So right now I'm just creating a /API that's going to be something, and that one needs to be imported over here. So let me duplicate this. How can I duplicate it? I forget the, there you go. So from my API, and it's a folder, but it have an index, so I can actually use this. And I can actually have this to use my API. That way we have the route, the root route, and it's working fine. Let me change this order, and let me put my post here and this one over here. Perfect. So we're going to the block API, but if we do the get request to here, hello from API. So this one is actually working. Why? Because we define it right here. Now in our post, we're going to define everything that we need to have there. So let me go to the post section, and let me copy this. Let me go to post, paste it, remove everything that I don't need. But this one, instead of doing API, is going to be post from post API. Just the simple get request. As you can see, I'm doing just /post in here. That one is because get imported over here, get used, and I'm using with the prepend of API. That means that API /post is going to use that post controller or that post route. Actually, let's call it post route, just to have like a separation on name. That way, if we do forward slash API is still working, but we do post hello from post API. So it doesn't matter that we just define it here as a forward slash post, or like our route is going to be like that. But because we are pre-appending with forward slash API, that's why our construction get it this way. That is pretty much, and I believe there you go. API forward slash post. We have both of them together. So this is a little bit of the scaffolding that we're going to use for the route. And it's a little bit crazy, I know what I'm showing you here, but I believe it's going to be pretty much what we needed. And those one, let's actually put it there. Added API route, and let's comment it out. Perfect. So before actually continue, we can actually do, let me actually open my post route. There you go. So this very much is going to be to do, and this is going to get all post. It's pretty much what we needed, but it will define something like this. If we post something here, add one post, and then we can define something dynamic too. And let me show you that. So here we're going to do just doing the get to the post is going to my to do, because I need to implement it later. Pretty much getting everything, and my post is going to respond with the to do. Pretty much add one post, right? But we can actually use a get like this, and we can actually implement dynamic elements. So I define something after my post forward slash. This should be like the ID of the post. So getting, and this pretty much get one post with ID, and let's define the ID. Let me remove this. Let me do a backlit in order to be able to do my string literals, and I put my request dot param dot ID, and let's actually test it. So if I do a get to here, didn't like it. Something is not working. Oh, I have double tap. Let me save it. Sorry, it's running fine. Perfect. So if I do a get, it will get all the posts. If I do a post, it's going to be implemented there at one particular post, as you can see it. But if I do a get with post of ID 1, it get post with ID number 1. When we do something like ID 10, it's get a post with ID 10. With something like random like this, pretty much get that post with that particular ID. So this is a dynamic route, and this dynamic route get actually generated with this ID element. So when we have over here after our post, we're saying that anything over here is going to be a parameter, and that parameter is part of my request, and it's called the same way that we call it over here. So we have it like that. So I'm not validating this ID actually exists, because I'm catching anything that doesn't have an ID through here. That's why. So if we comment this out, let's say, and I try to do, let's see how that actually works. I have an error because API post doesn't exist, right? But it was something like that. It gave me the post with that ID. That's why we have this one on top from this one. So we need to get pretty much everything. We need to get one. We need to save one. And we can actually put and this will have pretty much the same ID. And let me actually copy this content from here, put it here, updating, post with that particular ID, and we can actually say those, and we can actually delete. Yes, deleting, post with ID. So we have pretty much all the routes that we need to have in the post. We're going to define then the services and how to actually work with that. But for now, we have the get. If we do a put, we're going to update that post. So we need to send some information or to understand it. We are not implementing patch. If we do the delete, we're just deleting that particular post. So we have all the routes that we actually require in our one, and then the logic on the functionality will come later. Now that we have that, let's actually stage it and put added post routes. Now that we have the post routes there, I actually will stop the video right now. I don't want to make it that longer. So in the next one, I will continue working with this application and show you my chain of tasks, pretty much how to implement now the database connection and the validation of the information. Hope that you like it. Happy coding, everybody.